Hi there, and welcome to this third lesson of Fundamentals of Programming. Today we are going to talk about programming languages and look at some of the factors that go into choosing a programming language. Now, I've already mentioned that we are going to use JavaScript in this course, and the reason being because it is an easy language to learn with. It is beginner friendly. It does have its own pitfalls, and let's face it, every language has its own pitfalls. But JavaScript kind of has a little bit more than your average language, but that doesn't stop it from being a good language to learn with. So keeping in mind that it's already been predefined that we are going to use JavaScript, let's look at some of the other factors as to why you might want to choose another language for a particular application. And the application that you want to write is actually a huge factor in the language that you choose to write that application. Applications can fall into one of two categories. You have what are called conventional applications, which are applications that run on the operating system. They are native applications. So if you're using Windows or Mac OS X, or if you're using some mobile operating system, a conventional application are applications that run on that operating system. And conventional applications are typically written in what are called compiled languages. These languages are converted into a native format that is specific to the operating system that you're writing the application for. So if you're writing a Windows application, the compiler is going to take your code and generate an executable file so that whenever you double click that file, the Windows operating system knows what to do with it. It just starts executing it. So the advantage to compiled languages is the speed at which they execute, because there's really nothing to be done. The compiler has already generated what's needed for the operating system to run your application, so running it is just lightning quick. The second category is web applications. These are applications that run on the web, and you can break down a web application into two pieces. The first piece is the server-side application. This is primarily responsible for data processing and storage, but it can do some other stuff as well. You can write a server-side application in just about any programming language. The only limitation that you have is the operating system and the web server that your web server is running on. Without regard to those limitations, you can write a server-side application in just about any language. You can use compiled languages, or you can use what are called interpreted languages. Interpreted languages are not compiled. In fact, they're called interpreted languages because they are interpreted. We write our code, and those code files just sit there waiting for the web server to execute them. And whenever it does execute them, it has to interpret them before they can be executed. So interpreted languages are typically slower than compiled languages because compiled languages are compiled into some executable format that the operating system automatically knows what to do with. So compiled executes faster, but things are somewhat changing in this aspect. And that's because most interpreted languages are turning into what's called just-in-time compiled languages. And that is the code still sits out there, but they get compiled just in time in order to run. And then they are kept in memory for as long as they're needed. And then whenever they're no longer needed, then they're lost out of memory until they need to be just in time compiled again. So that does speed up the execution of interpreted languages. And even though there is this performance issue with interpreted languages, they are the most popular programming languages used for server-side applications. The second piece of a web application is the client. That is the browser. So HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, these are all technologies used within the browser, and they are used primarily for the user interface. JavaScript is an interpreted language. It is not compiled, but every modern browser has a just-in-time compiling JavaScript engine. So that speeds up the execution of JavaScript considerably, especially over the older engines that were used in browsers even 5 years ago. So after saying all of this, how do you pick a programming language? Well, it depends upon the application that you want to write and the platform that you want to write that application for. But personal preference also plays an important factor, because as you learn more and more languages, you tend to find languages that you like to use. For example, I first started programming with JavaScript. It's the language that I used to learn how to program. And then from JavaScript, I branched out to other languages, PHP, C, C++, C Sharp. I'm not going to name them all, but I like languages that have the C style of syntax, which JavaScript is one of those. But that's just my personal preference. There are other people that do not like C style programming, and there are languages that cater to those other likes and preferences. So as you learn more and more languages, which you will eventually do because JavaScript is just the gateway language to all of the other languages in the world, you will find what you like, and then you will find languages for whatever platform that you are developing for. And for this course, we want to write web applications in the browser. So that pretty much limits us to JavaScript because there's no other language that we can use. So now that we have picked our language of choice, we need to find some tools to help us write code. So that's where we will pick up in the next lesson.